Hi, everybody. Tim Hughes here. Happy New Year. I'm with Larry Levine. If you don't know me, I'm CEO and co-founder of DLA Ignite. A lot of you online will know Larry. Before we get into things, Larry, why don't you remind everybody where they can get hold of you?
Yeah, I will. But first of all, Happy New Year, Tim.
Yeah, thank you.
Wow, 2020, here we are.
I know. It's amazing.
Who would have thought? Who would have thought? But anyway, people can find me, they can find me all over LinkedIn. I'm really active on LinkedIn. You can find me on my website through social, sellingfromtheheart.net. You can find me at the same on my podcast through Selling from the Heart as well. You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. I'm all over the social world, Tim.
And we can't go any further without mentioning your book, can we, Larry?
You can. Go ahead, Tim.
So, if you don't know, Larry has a book out, Selling from the Heart, available from all good bookshops and from Amazon.
I wish all good bookshops, but for right now, it's available on Amazon, and the audio version will be out this month.
Excellent, excellent. So we're going to be talking about being authentic online. And one of the things I want to talk about, Larry, is that there's a lot. I actually wrote a blog just before Christmas because a LinkedIn trainer had basically written, you need to be all of these things. And I looked at those things, and I actually think that 90% of people actually don't understand what those things mean. And so what I wanted to do today was drill down about being authentic. What, as a sales professional, what is it that we should be doing, and what we should be doing differently?
Yeah, in fact, it was just a couple days ago, somebody had wrote something about authenticity. And I responded in a very professional way. And I just said, hey, listen, I totally respect the fact that you're writing about authenticity and you're bringing authenticity to the forefront. But how many truly understand inside of who they are, what it means to be authentic? And I think what's happening is, like we use the word hello, right? Guys they'll walk by each other, maybe give a head nod. Hey, Tim, how's it going? Catch you later. And so forth. We throw those kind of words around. Well, I'm just concerned that people are throwing around the word authenticity. Well, we got to be authentic. Okay, great. I know we do. But what's it mean? What's it mean to you to be authentic?
Yeah,
outside of the mirror moments that happen online.
Yeah, I'm currently reading the Simon Sinek book, the importance of why. And in the book, he talks about the fact that the word authentic can't be measured. But actually the word being authentic, you should know what it means. So he brings up that there's an example of Samsung that they do this thing about offering money back. So you buy a Samsung, and after a certain amount of time, you can get some money back. But there's a whole bunch of tricks in the terms and conditions, like you have to do it at a particular time. If you live in a block of flats or apartments, only one person in that block of flats can actually ask for that money back. Now, what Simon says is that I bet they've got lots of things on their walls in Samsung about it being authentic, about being honest, about being truthful, but they still came up with that as a way of actually tricking people into buying something and then not giving them the money back. And I wonder how many other people have all these things around their office and are not actually being authentic and being true in their heart, as selling from the heart guy, being authentic in the heart and saying, this is me, this is who I am, like it or not.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point, which the favorite chapter in my book, I like them all, but the last chapter really just brings everything to the forefront when I talk about not being an empty suit. And I say it in a way not to disrespect people, but just to say, hey, you know what? You're an empty suit if you can't clearly define who you are, and you're putting a charade out there and you're living a life through what you see through social or through how other people are acting. Everybody's unique and different, Tim, and I think we can all agree to that. But it's where I really see the sales world struggling is, how do you define yourself? Why should Tim or why should Larry get engaged in a conversation with you? What goods are you bringing to the table that gets me to say, you know what, I can't wait to talk to Tim Hughes, or I can't wait to talk to Larry Levine. There's not many people that can say that, unfortunately, about salespeople out there. And it takes some time. We have to do some tough work. And that means we have to look inside of who we are and clearly define us and be willing to stand up for it. And that just means, you got to be real, and you have to be raw, and you have to be relatable. And more importantly, you have to be relevant. And the only way to do that is you got to do the work, and it starts inside.
Yeah, and we do a lot of work with people, and I know you do as well, where you the first thing you do with salespeople, you say, okay, tell me something about yourself. They say, well, I'm really good at relationship building. I'm authentic. I'm energetic. I'm tenacious. It's like, okay, right. Well, all of those things, every single salesperson on LinkedIn will say that they're tenacious, they're energetic, et cetera, et cetera. So you're not actually saying anything that's different. Also we get a lot of salespeople that say, I'm really good at relationship building. It's like, well, yeah, that's interesting, and you may be really good at that, but lots of millions of other salespeople are. But buyers aren't interested in that. What they're interested in is why you're doing something, and not what you do, but why you do it. What we're looking for is why is it you get up in the morning? What is it that actually drives you to work? Not just the fact that you're going to get your mortgage paid. And I think that, as you say, we need to be thinking more about. Maybe it's something that happens when we're talking here. We're obviously over 25. And
just barely, Tim.
Maybe it's something, the fact that but maybe it's that we've lived a little bit longer than other people. I don't want to necessarily think that that's us dictating to people, but as you say, it's about understanding from ourselves. Ever since I started selling, I've always wanted to be different from other people. I've always wanted, I want to write an email different from everybody else. I want LinkedIn wasn't around but I would have wanted my LinkedIn profile different from everybody else.
Yeah.
I don't want to put the company banner. I've just been doing some prospecting myself, and I'm looking at this one target account, and every single one has got the same company banner on their LinkedIn profile, and it's so boring. I know why they've done it, because someone in marketing will say, yes, it's all the branding's the most important thing, but I don't buy the branding. I buy the people, and I buy the vision.
Well, it's interesting, because I have the same conversation with leaders all the time. I said, I'm not here to downplay all the nice stuff that you're doing with your corporate marketing and your fancy website and all that. There's a part of that that's necessary. But what I'm here to tell you, in the world that we live in today, if your salespeople aren't dressing the part online, if they're not walking and talking like sales professionals, like the credible experts I know they can become, they're just like everybody else. Do you think they may even make it to your fancy website that you've spent a gazillion dollars on if they can't make it past your salespeople?
But what we're doing is, if we're talking about an organization that is needing to go out and get opportunities, then what you're going to do is that you're going to drive. If you're going to phone people up or you're going to email people, those same people are going to look at your website, and they're going to look at the profiles of the people. And to begin with, I don't make an emotional contact with a company. What I'll do is I'll make an emotional contact with a person, because people buy people. And what I'm looking for as a buyer is to go to someone's LinkedIn profile and go, that person seems interesting. I'm going to talk to them further, and build a relationship, just as we would do at a networking event, or on a date, or any other time when we basically have an interaction with a person. You're at a wedding and you're standing there and you don't know anybody, and you go, I'm going to go and talk to somebody, and you have a conversation with somebody, and then you find out we do all these things like, where'd you come from? Where did you go to school? And we find these things because we're social people, and we interact with people, and we try and find commonality between each other. And I think what people miss is when they say I'm being authentic, what they miss is the fact that they need to get this commonality. What is it that is going to bring you closer to me as the seller and the buyer, and build that relationship, not necessarily in a Facebook friend point of view, but in the relationship that we've always had as humans.
Yeah, excuse me. You bring up some really good points, because you go back a little bit ago when we were talking and you started talking about relationships, right? If you ask most salespeople, they'll say, hey, I have great relationships with my customers, or I have good relationships in general. Great. Help me understand what is a relationship. Define the relationship. What's a business relationship? And all of a sudden you get deer in headlights. Where I'm really concerned with is where we're at today is it's never been so easy to connect with people, but it's been ever so difficult to really connect with people.
Yes.
And that goes back to the relational skills. Is how are you truly engaging with people? And here we are, and I'm a sales geek and a sports nerd. I mean, those are two things that I geek out on sales and I geek out on sports talk. But what I think is happening is we're not really pulling back the covers with how we converse with people, whether that be on social, whether that be on face-to-face, whether that be through any other means that you can drive a conversation with somebody. We're keeping conversation at a surface level. And it's hard for me to get to know you, Tim, if I just keep it at surface level.
Mm.
And so in order for me to really get to know who you are and for you to get to know who I am, we have to eat vulnerability every single day. And we got to be willing to eat critique for breakfast as well. That means if I'm going to truly engage with Tim, then I really have to pull back the covers. I got to open up the window. I started writing about it on social. You got to open up the social window to who you are and don't hold back, because there's too many people that hide behind their keyboards today.
Yeah.
And if you can just, granted, that's the world we live in. It's technology driven. I get it. I'm not here to poo-poo it. But if you can humanize yourself through technology and bring the best version of you to the forefront, people smell that instant frickintaneously.
They do. Your term about the empty suit, I think, is really important, because a lot of people actually think a relationship is that I'm going to sell you something, and you're going to buy something, and I'm going to make some money from it. And we've all been, and as buyers, if we think ourselves as buyers rather than sellers, we can smell that a mile off. And that isn't a relationship. Now, there are certain things you're going to sell which are very transactional.
Sure.
I'll get people phoning me up, selling me tickets for the rugby. I live near Twickenham. 2 tickets. Do you want them? It's Saturday. Give me a credit card. Bang. Okay, you can do the deal. It's transactional. You can do that without having a relationship. But you get above that. Selling cars actually is if you want to sell a lot of cars, you need to be able to build relationships. If you want to sell IT systems, if you want to be able to sell big ticket deals, if you want to sell ERP systems, that requires a relationship. The buyer will know your name. They will have some sort of relationship with you. And what we find is that the more authentic you are, so the more that you give of yourself, not I'm energetic, it's I live in West London and I enjoy going walking in Bushy Park. And you go, oh yeah, I was in Bushy Park last time I was in London. Bloody hell, Larry, I didn't know that. Yeah. I live in LA, but I know. And did you know the D-Day landings were actually organized by the Americans in Bushy Park? I didn't know that. And actually that sort of level of conversation and knowledge about each other. And actually we have the ability to do that at scale on social, but we don't ever, we seem to be scared of letting go, stepping off the roof and actually having that conversation.
Well, I think it's fear of being exposed, because, social's made it too easy. This would just be, wouldn't this be a dream, Tim? And I don't care what the social platform is, right? So let's just keep the names off. We'll just call it social platforms in general. Imagine this. Imagine if they took the like feature off.
Yeah.
If they took all the little hearts and hand clapping and all that off, and social became true engagement, where you would actually have to sit there and converse with somebody. You know, for instance, this is what blows my mind is when somebody writes a great article that I see online that I happen to comment on and say, hey, you know what, this is what it meant to me. Great job. And I put some thought to it, whether that be 2 sentences, 3 sentences, or even a freaking paragraph. And all that person does is give me a like. Now, granted, we can choose to use this however. I'm not the police, right, or anything like this on here. But to me, true engagement means is that one-to-one. It's, you know, that person took the time to read it and respond. I'm gonna put some thoughtful conversation back, and that's why I've gotten to where I'm at. That's why you've gotten to where you're at. But we just because it's just so fast. I can't build a relationship with anybody if I shorten the conversation to a like or a high five, or if I shorten that conversation face to face to, hey, Tim, how's it going? And you say, fine. And I move on to my next thing. We just can't do it. In my heart, I firmly believe there's way too many sales conversations happening, which we need to happen. And I'm not here to put it down. There's not enough relationship building conversations. There's not enough engagement happening, because if you're out there selling high ticket items, why would Tim Hughes turn over his hard-earned corporate dollars to you if you fail to do your due diligence and really uncover what's really, you know,
So what does authentic mean to Larry Levine?
It means not holding back. Right. Yeah, I don't hold back.
Okay, I don't hold back. What does that mean?
I just say what's on my mind, whether that might be, I mean, not in an offensive way, but when I say I don't hold back, I just open the window to who I am. Okay. I just let it go. In fact, it was interesting. I had a conversation just the end of last week with somebody, and in the first 5 minutes, and he's a senior leader guy at a bank. He goes, I can't believe you just shared all that stuff.
Right.
I said, how'd that make you feel?
Well, give me examples. Give me some examples.
I mean, I just went in and said, you know what? Hey, I got schooled, you know, many times in sales. I've been, you know, thrown things at and right. And I said, I got scabby knees and bloody elbows. Yeah. And I just learned that.
I'm going to turn the light on.
No, that's okay, Tim. And I just said, you know what? The only way that I can truly get to know somebody and they get to know me is I can't hold back. I can't be afraid of saying something. I'm okay with who I am, and I'm comfortable enough in my own skin that, you know, I can say, hey, you know what? I've had issues in the past, you know, family issues. I've had issues with my father and so forth. And the reason why I do what I do and pour myself into corporate relationships is because I seek out the things that I couldn't get when I was a kid. How many people are going to say that?
Not many.
And then all of a sudden, I was on a conversation with this gal, it was right day after New Year's. And we were talking about the same thing. And all of a sudden I started sharing, hey, I think I understand what my gift is to the social world and all that. And after about 5 minutes, she's starting to cry.
Right.
She goes, wow, it's pretty powerful. I can relate to that. Well, tell me, you know, how can you relate to that? And for 20 minutes, I never said anything. Now, I firmly believe you can do that, Tim, as a salesperson. But what happens is we let fear, bravado, and all this step in the way. But here's where I'm going to test this. And I'd like to share it with you is let's just take our sales hat off for a moment. And let's look at the personal side of who we are. I sure hope that in the personal side of who we are as humans, we're going to bring the best version of ourselves to a relationship. Because if we don't, what happens, Tim? We get exposed somewhere down the line, right?
Yeah.
It's natural. It happens. So if we can be real and raw, if we can be normal human beings in our marriage or as we're dating somebody, then my challenge to the sales world is what prevents you from doing the same thing? And I learned that a long time ago, because you mentioned it at the beginning of this podcast, that you were doing a lot of this stuff pre-social as well. So was I. I always wanted to stay, I call it one step ahead of the curve. I wanted to sit on top of the totem pole, which means I had to do things differently. And all I'm asking the sales world to do, if we integrate social, is do things differently.
Yeah.
Don't be an empty suit. Bring the best version of yourself. If not, you'll get exposed. And a lot of people are getting exposed right now because they're too afraid. They're insecure with who they are, even though on the outside they may, strut around like they are secure, but they're not. And I'm just challenging, saying, hey, you know what? If you really want to get to know that person, it's up to you. It's not up to them. Be proactive, which means throw the best version of yourself out there, which means you got to self-reflect and do some hard work on yourself.
And I think it's really important that we understand that actually it's okay to be vulnerable.
It is.
And to feel vulnerable. And as both as salespeople and as leaders, it's important that we sometimes lean into the vulnerability. I read a book this year called Dare to Lead. Bren, sorry, I can't remember your name, but she's done 2 TED talks.
You're talking about Brene Brown?
That's the one, yeah. And you need to watch those TED talks. There's 2 of them. She's done 2 of them. She's a great laugh. And Brene Brown is the Dare to Lead book is fantastic in terms of, it is okay to be vulnerable, and we need, and if you're excuse me, if you're not feeling vulnerable as a leader, you're probably not doing it right.
Yeah, and it's spend 10 minutes on social and I just start laughing because of so many people out there that are positioning themselves as they think they should be positioned. But I can guarantee you this, 9 times out of 10, that's not how they're really leading their life.
No, it's not.
I didn't mean to choke you up, Hughes.
No. It's the vulnerability. Yeah, I know. There's people quite often send me stuff and say, have you seen this person? And, they're positioning themselves as a social selling ninja. And I'll say, and I'll look and I go, but they've only got 36 followers on Twitter. And I go, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I shared this before. I'm going to share this story, and you already know some of it, but you and I didn't know each other 3.5 years ago.
No.
0.
Yeah.
There was a small percentage of people who knew me outside of Los Angeles, California, where I spent my whole sales career. In the span of 3.5 years, I've been able to engage and market myself across the world
globally.
Like just opening up, I say open up the social window. My challenge to the sales community is all you have to do is focus on your marketplace, wherever your marketplace is. So how are you going to get noticed in that marketplace when no one knows you exist? And that might be a tough pill to swallow. But in the world, what's interesting is I'll always ask salespeople, do first impressions matter?
Yeah.
They'll go, of course, first impressions matter. Then I'm going to ask you to take your sales goggles off, and I'm going to ask you to put on the goggles and glasses of your clients and your prospects.
Yeah.
You have 30 seconds. What's the first impression that you're making? And then, it's deer in headlights. You can hear pins drop on carpet. And I go, we have some work to do. But here's the thing is it doesn't take long to get noticed in today's world. It really doesn't. I mean, they can smell sincerity just as fast as they can smell BS.
Of course.
But if you're consistent with delivering your message, if you're consistent with engaging, if you're consistent with educating, and then furthermore, if you can excite people into conversation, great things happen. And I'll use a guy across the pond that you may know. Have you ever heard of a guy named Phil Jones?
No.
In the UK, I highly suggest that you look him up.
Okay.
Afterwards. And I'm in the Speakers Association in Los Angeles, and Phil came and spoke, I want to say about 2 months ago. In fact, I'm staring at his book, and he wrote a book called Exactly What to Say. And what's interesting is it goes back to this. We're not having enough great conversations, whether that be on social or whether that be on face to face.
Yep.
Because so many people don't know what to say.
Yes, and people have turned conversations into transactions, which is we've got to dial more and 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 more. We're not making a number. Shit, what we're going to do? Well, we need to dial even more.
Yeah, and I always say this, and there are transactional sales, right? I mean, there are, and I'm not here to negate it, but in the sales world, the more transactional conversations you have, the more transactional relationships that you will develop. Yes. And the more of those that happen, you'll get replaced by somebody who comes along who drives a better transactional conversation. And in order for you to change that and transform it, you have to humanly engage with somebody. And here's the toughest part that I've seen straight across the board. Salespeople fail, and they fail miserably at understanding how to have a normal human conversation with someone before they flip it to a sales conversation. For the simple reason is, just because Tim Hughes connects to me and connects, hits the connect, doesn't mean he likes me, doesn't mean he trusts me, doesn't mean he thinks I'm credible. It's up to me to proactively build that up. And the only way to do that is quit freaking acting like a salesperson and act like a normal, caring human being.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. I agree. And one of the things that people don't get is that it's okay not to be liked. And I don't know whether, again, it's something about age or whatever, but we spend a lot of our time in sales running around at the top of the funnel, talking to people, trying to convince them that we can try and get them down the funnel and sell them something. And so we talk to all these people, and what happens is that we talk to a lot of people that don't like us, and that's fine. But what we try and do is that we're taught this thing called qualification, which is basically, will somebody like me? Will somebody buy from me? Will somebody like this product? Those sorts of things. I know it's to do with budget and timescale, but actually budget and timescale are a waste of time if the person doesn't like you. Now, what we have to do is be in a situation where we realize that not everybody will like us. But what we can do is that we can do things on social to actually qualify out those people that don't like us, so we can concentrate and focus on the people that do. Now, that doesn't mean that we talk to less people. If you're a person that has to make 100 phone calls, well, why don't you make 100 phone calls to the people that like you, rather than 100 phone calls where 50 people like you and 50 people don't? You've doubled the amount of work that you can achieve. The efficiency is greater. And one of the things that we've learned over the 3.5 years that we've been in business is that when we write our LinkedIn profiles, we will actually qualify out the people that don't like us, so we don't waste our time talking to those people. And that for me was a really interesting part, the fact that we're able to use social to be more efficient and effective than having to work in an environment where we have to deal with and try and qualify people out.
Yeah, there's I'd like to layer on top of that, because I'll throw some believability in here. And I know you're reading Simon Sinek's book right now.
Yeah.
And I watched a video. This goes a while back with him and Ken Blanchard, and they were both sitting in these high back chairs, and it was like a TED Talk type scenario, but the two of them are just sitting there, drinking coffee and answering questions from the audience. And Simon Sinek went on and he said something that, this is the way I interpreted it, Tim. And he says that you got to be able to believe in your message. In your heart, you have to be able to believe in your message and deliver it with conviction, with clarity. You got to be concise with it, because if you do, people will follow your message. And where am I going with this is, I remember a long time ago, and I learned this the hard way in sales, is I was trying to convince people who didn't believe in my message to believe in my message.
Yes.
And it's another way of saying and layering on what you were just talking about. is I found out that today in the selling from the heart message and things like that, there's people who aren't going to believe in it, just like there's people that aren't going to believe in your message at DLA, right? And that's fine.
Yeah.
But there's enough people out there that you have to internally believe your message and be able to deliver it so well, and find those people who believe in your message and watch what starts to happen. But unfortunately, if we peel it back even farther, how many salespeople and their leaders truly understand their message or believe their message enough to deliver it in any fashion that somebody believes them? Not many.
No.
That's what scares the hell out of me.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's probably the most fundamental thing that we're in business that we're seeing in the sales and marketing arena, which is there are people that are fixated on doing these things that we've done for over 30 years, and we're going to carry on doing them, even though the world has changed. But they do them in a way which is still the mindset of 30 years ago, which is where you could hide behind things. You could sit in your office and you could hide behind a telephone and you could just be transactional. And now we're in the situation where, if I want to find out about Larry, I can find out about Larry. I was talking to one of our associates. She deals with wealth management. And this person was saying, their customer was a high net wealth person and said, I'm not going to go on LinkedIn. And she went on to Google and said, your husband has a mustache, you have a Dalmatian dog, and your daughter has a pink dress. And she said, how do you know that? She said, well, you had some photos taken as a photographer and he's put them all on the internet. It's like, there is stuff about you on the internet.
Yeah.
And what you need to do is actually take control of this, because if you don't, other people will write for you. They may not write it in, but they will do it in their heads. They'll look at your LinkedIn profile, both your passive and your active profiles, and they'll go, I think this person's an idiot. I think this person's an empty suit. I think this person's just a salesperson. They're going to just sell me something and then walk away. And people will judge you for it, and you need to take control of it.
Yeah, I mean, the first word that comes to my mind, listening to what you're saying, social capital, right? And I looked at it as this goes back to like mid 2000s. I hired a coach. Best thing I ever did in my whole life, Tim, is I started to see what was happening. This goes like 2005, 2006. So here we are 15, 16 years ago now. And looking at, what do I do? People are hiding behind voicemail. They're not returning emails. If I need to succeed in sales, I got to do something different. And that's when I learned how to build my persona and build up who I am online and smash it together with face-to-face. And, it just comes, it's second nature to me. I don't even think about it. Like, I know you don't even think about it. And a lot of people struggle with this. And I said, hey, listen, I hate to tell you this. It's not going away, right? Father Google's not going to just all of a sudden cease to not exist, right? And socials is not going to exist. Who knows what the platforms hold 5, 6, 7 years from now? But I mean, you got to take control of who you are now, because if you don't, somebody else will. And what's really interesting is I had a conversation with an old company I was with for 20 years, and I was a first employee, worked my way up, bought into the company and so forth. This was just about 2 weeks ago. I had a conversation one evening with one of my old business partners. And he was saying, gosh, he goes, Larry, he goes, it's just so difficult to find people today who want to work. And I said, I beg to differ. It's you have that mindset of what those people look like because you're living in the past. And he goes, we still bring people on into our company and they just don't last very long. Then they move on. And then they succeed somewhere else. And I said, well, okay, let's just peel this thing back. Have you ever thought about the people that you're bringing into your company? They might be good people who are eager to learn and want to succeed, but you're coaching and training them and nurturing them in your playbooks a decade old.
Yeah.
And that's what's starting to happen is what got you to success didn't happen overnight. And this is what I share with people. You didn't get from where you're at to where your company is overnight. It was a series of small, successful steps that you took.
Yeah.
Well, in order to get from where you're at now to where you need to be, that might take a couple steps backwards, but you have to take those small, successful steps.
Mm.
And it's just, I don't think people are eager to eat the fear of change vitamin that's really necessary to succeed. And it's straight across the board, whether it be in big Fortune 500 companies, small companies, medium-sized companies. Everyone's facing the same issues right now.
Mm. Yeah.
And what do we do about it?
Yeah. Yeah. And well, I mean, most companies that we deal with are generally scared. They're scared of the fact that they're not relevant. You know, all of the things about we're not getting enough leads and meetings, which is a symptom of the cause, and the cause being is that the lack of relevance to the world today, and that's not about millennials. It's not about Generation Z. It's about understanding the world that we live in, and what happens is that we have this 2-track life, which is, you know, we sit on our mobiles doing stuff on the train in the way to work. We get to work and we suddenly go through this time zone way back to 30 years ago, and immediately work like people did 30 years ago. And then we get back on our phones, and people don't just seem to be able to jump and see the difference.
Why? Why do and that's what blows my mind, is the biggest disconnect.
I don't know why. I don't know why. I don't know why people still feel that we have to do the processes and run the processes that we had 20, 30 years ago. You know, I had a conversation with somebody just before Christmas, which was they said, I read one of your articles. They said, oh yeah, I really understand what you know. I was writing the fact that, you know, a lot of these people do email marketing, and basically it's like a machine gun. You basically machine gun all these emails out, and the people don't like that. And she said, yeah, I guess that's true. Now, this person was less than 30, and it's like, do you not really understand that people don't like having lots of emails sent to them saying, buy my shit, buy my shit, buy my shit?
Yeah.
Why do you not understand that? And she said, I need to go back to the office and talk to people about it. Go, yeah, you do. Because this is, I worked in, you know, I started working in the mid 80s. We just about had email, and we did email loads of people and blast it out, and we made sales that way. But now, really?
Yeah. But here's the interesting part, is the same thing that we were doing with email back in the day is being done on social now. They just replaced, now they've just added another layer to it, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's all I see at the moment. A lot of marketing could have come out of 1985, which is when I got my first, when the CD player first came out, and I got a CD player, and people are still marketing like 1985. It's like, and really? You know, I met this person in marketing, and I said, "How do you sell stuff?" She said, "Oh, we advertise." I said, "Oh, that's interesting." I said, "What about ad blockers?" And she said, "Oh yeah, we use them all in marketing." I said, "So everybody in the marketing team use ad blockers?" She said, "Yes." I said, "But you're using advertising as a way of trying to get desire from other people." I said, "Do you not sense the irony there?" "No," she said.
Yeah.
It was, I mean, and she was 25, straight out of college.
Sad.
Yeah.
It just, the thing that drives me crazy is, and I'm not antisocial by no means. I'm extremely social. But I think the reason why I'm where I'm at, you're where you're at, with your team, is you understand how to deliver a message and position yourself well enough that people want to engage in a conversation with you. So I look back, and I'm gonna date myself a little bit, but I think that's okay. Is one of the very first books I ever read was Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Oh yes, yeah.
And what's interesting, that book was written in 1937. And I think this is a great way to sum up where we're going with this. Is so now here we are. I'm trying to do my math. That book's 83 years old. And if Dale Carnegie was sitting in rooms today, he would probably laugh his you know what off. Because in my opinion, it's about building relationships and changing the way people think. Well, Tim, when you and I started our career, it was just when we started our career, right? There wasn't that many forms to communicate with people like there are today, but we still had to build relationships, and we still had to change the way people think. So if we fast forward from the mid 80s to now, we're here in 2020, we're still building relationships and changing the way people think. We have a plethora of tools to do that with. And now when we start looking at social and how people drive conversations start in many different fashions.
Yeah.
And we have to understand as salespeople today and as sales leaders of companies that if we're using the phone, and I'm a big proponent of the phone, but if we use the phone and we're getting blocked, and if we're using email and we're getting blocked, and those are your primary two forms of driving a conversation with people today, then I'm going to question your success level. It's not going to be that great. But if we can all agree there's probably dozens of ways to start conversations with people, we have to understand as salespeople how to start those conversations, because nothing happens unless you start a conversation with somebody.
Larry, I'm going to bring it to the close. It's been a great discussion. It's been nearly 42 minutes.
Wow.
And I agree with you. If sales is about starting conversations, and we all need to learn and continually learn about starting those conversations. It's been epic. Thank you, Larry.
I love this. I love having conversations like this. I promise you this, Tim, this conversation will continue on social.
Oh, we could have sat here for hours. I know, but I need to get a video that I can put on YouTube. Thank Larry for your time.
No, it's my pleasure.
And it's if by the way, if you're not connected to Larry, and there are some people here that will be watching that where English may not be their first language. So Larry is Larry. Levine is Levine. I think there's only one of you on LinkedIn, and if there isn't, there should only be one. Larry is also very Twitter and anywhere on social. He's a prolific social person, and he loves conversations, not arguments, but that if you come across one of his articles, read it and comment. And you'll find that Larry will get into a conversation with you, and you could end up turning into. We call ourselves friends, I think now, Larry. So
most definitely. And I just like to end it this way, Tim. And there's not. I call it healthy conversation. There's not enough healthy, human, heartfelt conversation on social, and everyone may or may. You don't have to agree with me, and that's okay. In my approach. All I ask is that you respect my opinion as I will respect yours. And when it's all said and done, that's just drive great conversation. Everyone has an opinion. Just share your opinion. Just don't be an a-hole about it.
And I think that, I think it's important that when we're on social is that we actually understand that we don't have all of the answers.
No.
And we're not brains of Los Angeles, and we're not brains of the world, and there are other people out there that will probably have better ideas, and there's nothing wrong with going, do you know, I not thought about that.
Yeah.
It may not happen. It may not happen in certain things that we talk about where we're based around emotion, which are politics, religion, addictions, and things like that. But it may happen around business. We as DLA Ignite have some interesting theories and case studies in the way that we're working. And I know that you do as well. And it's well worth people engaging with us and saying, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? And having a discussion about it.
Yeah, I'll leave it at this. Is I would encourage people that instead of trying to figure out social, figure out yourself first. Once you figure out yourself first, then you'll uncover how social works.
Cool.
My opinion.
Thank you very much, Larry,
My
for your
pleasure.
time today. Have a wonderful day.
You as well. I know we'll talk soon.
Yeah.